and welcome back to A Wealthy Life, the podcast for anyone ready and willing to become more calm, more confident, and more in control of both their money and their futures. My name is Vicky Wishay, and in today's episode, we're going to be exploring what it really means to be financially resilient. That first step on an interesting path towards financial autonomy, and we'll talk more about that later. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, before you go rolling your eyes and thinking this is just another save more, spend less episode, let me reassure you that's never been my objective ever. It's not about shrinking your life, about cancelling your coffee. Hold on a minute. I have definitely spoken about cancelling your coffees, but with purpose. But it's not about building financial security at the cost, at the sacrifice of your fun and your adventures. After all, that's what a wealthy life is about. Resilience isn't about restriction, it's about readiness. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. And today I'm going to show you how to build true financial resilience, not by doing more, but by thinking differently, building on last week's episode where we were talking about mindset and how important mindset is in your financial futures, that money story that you might be dragging around with you that you're even unaware of. So let's start off with, again, in a way, what is financial resilience really? What's it really all about? And as I said to you, it's not about cutting back specifically, but it's also not about having everything figured out. This isn't about having all the answers. I feel like I've got financial resilience, and yet I still find nuances, easier ways that, now if only I'd done that, this would have been easier. So I'm constantly refining the process. And of course, then I just get on a podcast or in an Instagram reel and share it with you. So it's this constant journey of discovery, of enlightenment, if you like it. That sounds a bit spiritual, but of gaining insights about money, because we weren't taught. We might have been taught maths. You may like maths, you may not like maths, but you weren't taught about money. And if maybe that connection between money and maths had been made in school, it might have got everybody's attention. But resilience means being ready for change. And that could be changes that occur of your choosing or even out of your control. And that's what we're going to look at today. Because if you are financially resilient, you're going to have the ability to handle those unexpected expenses that may occur in the future without panicking, without spiraling. And that's so important, because when you go down that plug hole, it's so easy to give up. You're going to have the flexibility to adapt to change, whether that's to do with your work, your health, your relationships. You're going to be able to make those calm, confident decisions. And it's staying in that place of calmness and confidence that enables you to make clear and helpful and supportive decisions. Whereas if you're spiraling and you're stressed, you can panic. Because confidence enables you to make proactive decisions instead of the fear-based ones. Because you're resilient, you will have the power to stay calm when all around you others are panicking. In a sense, you can think of resilience as protection and power combined together. You are empowering yourself to be financially protected against the future. And at the end of this, you're going to see that there is one simple message in here that if you get it, and I'll share it with you at the end, remind me if I haven't. And when you clock that, your mind is just going to be completely blown. Now, whether you're a senior professional, whether you're a business owner, whether you're balancing work, finances, the family, financial resilience is going to give you more choice than you've ever had before. It's what freedom is really about. Having the choice, having the option when it counts most. And it's not just about savings, although that is part of it, but it's about building a life where your finances support your freedom and aren't built on fear. And I would say this is particularly important for women because we often think that resilience means cutting back, staying small, waiting it out. And that's absolutely not what resilience is about. It's about the power to choose. And that's what I want to give you over the next half an hour or so. Let's start by looking at the myths that undermine resilience. And this is where so many people go wrong. They confuse it with restriction. They say things like, if I save enough, I'll be fine. Now, I have said to you that saving is important, but resilience is not just about stockpiling cash. What happens if your income drops? What happens if you have a property portfolio and a couple of properties sit empty? Resilience is a dynamic thing. It's not a passive thing. The first thing you've got to look at is that your savings are beating inflation. And I will say this again and again and again. And also that it's not just saving. Like I speak to loads of people and they talk about how they save. And then when we look at the savings accounts, well, hold on, I thought you said you were saving £500 a month. There are 12 months in the year. Why haven't you got £6,000 in your savings? Well, because I have to keep taking money out. What we want is to make sure that the savings are one way, that we build that resilience pot and we don't have to worry about it and we don't have to dip into it. And having said that, resilience isn't about cutting back. It's not about cancelling holidays. It's not about saying no to joy, to fun, to adventure, and basically to life. That's not resilience. Resilience is about planning smart, not living small. It's about being intentional, not being deprived. So, having said it's not about cutting back, and having said that it's still about savings, you might then think it's about working harder. And that's absolutely not true, because that notion of working harder can lead to a position of fear. If I don't do this, then there'll be consequences. If I don't hoard cash, if I'm not in this scarcity mind, something's going to go wrong. And actually, what we're looking at is more effort doesn't necessarily result in you feeling or even being more financially secure. In fact, working hard without a strategy could just wear you out and leave you more financially exposed, because what happens when we get tired? We tend to treat ourselves. We'll book a holiday because we're exhausted. We need to lie on a beach, or we'll go and book a spa day, or we'll book a meal out, or order a takeaway because we're too tired to cook. And you're sort of having what would be considered luxuries, but without the joy of them because you're going into them exhausted. We have to think differently. We have to lead ourselves and not just react to situations, because those fear-based behaviors lead to burnout, guilt, or worse, even a feeling that life is passing you by while you're still trying to get organized and save for the future. And quite frankly, that'll be a future you're never likely to achieve, and quite frankly, never likely to afford. The problem is that a lot of people do think about the future and they prepare for a disaster. They don't think about the future and design a wealthy life. Now, there's quite a big difference here. And what do I mean by that? So I've already said to you, in a sense, resilience is about being ready for change, but it isn't about change being a disaster. It's about change meaning a moment when you want to maybe change direction. Maybe you thought this was your life and now you want to pivot, that you need to be ready to adapt. Can you start to see that subtle difference here? It leads back to that mindset conversation that I was having last week. And think about it from this positive perspective a minute, from being a realist, not a fatalist, acknowledging that there will be change in our lives, some that we're going to plan for. You may be a young person and know in your life that you want to meet a partner and start a family. That's a change that is going to come, and one that you are positively working towards. It's one of your goals. But equally, you could meet the love of your life and lose them. You could start your dream job and then leave it by design or other means. You've got to think about your health, your home, your family, your friends. And I haven't even started on the economy and global politics yet. But if you think about those things as being opportunities, as things that are going to happen in your life, again, some by design, some not by design, that's none of that is with fear in my voice. It's with realism that things change. You can have a path that you want to go down and things may change. You can change your mind. That's perfectly okay, because change is an inevitable part of life, often outside of your control, occasionally a surprise. And what you want to do is be in a position where you have the power to choose to do nothing, and be fearful, or make a plan based in fear, or you want to have the power to think of a bridge that will take you from where you are now across that challenge or change to where you want to be. You want to think of resilience as a set of armor that will help you stay strong and succeed. Let's use a property metaphor, and maybe it's the scaffolding that holds you together. It's all about your mindset. And that's why I started talking about mindset last week, and as a way to take back control of your money story and become that script that empowers you. And if you haven't listened, maybe go listen to that after this. And if you have listened, maybe go back and re-listen and see what new insights you gain. So there's these two sides to it. I've always thought of it this way. You need a financial mindset, because without the financial mindset, any actions, any plans that you're going to make are not necessarily going to come from the clearer thinking that you get. Okay. Having said that, if you have a financial mindset, and I can't actually imagine that this is possible, but if you have a financial mindset, then you would become more financially resilient. But I'm not sure that you would find financial resilience an easy thing to achieve if you didn't have the mindset first. Because I don't believe, and please feel free to disagree with me, I don't believe that you can recognize how important financial resilience is to you, particularly now and moving forward over the next 4, 5, 8 years. How important financial resilience is. It has to be a conscious awareness of it, and it has to be a pulling it up and going, this is important to me. I'm prepared to put some time and effort into learning what it is, rewriting my story, making plans. And please, this isn't going to take every weekday evening and all weekend to do. This is simple. Some of this thinking will go on while you're asleep. Some of this thinking will happen while you're at work, or maybe bored in a meeting, something like that. You'll be processing this at an unconscious level. And what I do want to do here is give you the foundations of financial resilience as sort of a 5-point plan for learning, so that when you understand each one of these topics, and not just understand it in its existential, out of context way, but you understand what that actually means to you, and you take it in and you start to integrate it into your life and your thinking, you will have the foundations of financial resilience. So last week we were just acknowledging the fact that you'll have a story, and that story might not be helpful and you might need to rewrite it. And now I want to give you 5 steps that you can actually embrace, 5 pillars of foundations, whatever we want to call them. Okay. So number 1, emergency funds that actually work for you. And that's what I was saying a little earlier on. It's not just about saving. It's not just about having a lump of money, but it's about having money with context in a specific savings account. So what I'm talking about here is specifically 6 months of your essential expenses, clearly calculated, easily accessible, regularly reviewed. So let's break that down a minute. What are your essential expenses? So first off, you've got to know your financial position, your income, your expenses, your assets, your liability, because we know that knowledge is power. And then what you're looking at, and if you use the wealth tracker spreadsheet that you can access either through the community or through the Smart Women's Ultimate Guide to Money and Investing that's on YouTube, when you access that document, what you'll see is that I break things down into essential expenses and variable. And essential are your rent or your mortgage, your utility bills, your council tax, your buildings and contents insurance. I would also say it is your travel to work costs, your Wi-Fi, but not necessarily Spotify and Amazon. Obviously, I'd still like you to listen to the podcast, please. So maybe make sure that you can afford them, but not Sky and all of that sort of stuff. The essentials sit up here. They are the essentials that you need for life. They put a roof over your head, clothes on your back, they keep you warm or cool, lit up, fed, and safe. What comes after that are the expenses that you can choose, whether you have the coffee out, the meal out, the takeaway, whether you have 2 mobile phones, a second car, whether you have, like I said before, the Sky News and Spotify and things like that. What you want to identify is how much is I don't really want to use the minimum. Let's go back to the word I love, enough. How much money is enough to cover your essential expenses? And that's the figure, that monthly figure. And let's just say, for example, it's £2,000. We want 6 months of that money in a separate account. Now, I say all women should have this because we go through a lot more changes in terms of job changes, caring responsibilities, and the sheer fact that we have less wages, the gender pay gap, all that stuff that I've talked to you about before. But I think that if you're in a relationship, you should both have 6 months' money. You should both support one another to build up 6 months' money that sits in 2 separate accounts that you can rely on and know that you're safe. If you want to, you can put them together in one account as long as you both have equal access and you know that half of that money is yours and half of that money is your partner's. Having 6 months' money means that you can make choices. And it's not 6 months' money between you. The goal would be 6 months' money each, so that either one of you has got 6 months breathing space. Whether you lose a job, whether something changes in your relationship, that's the key thing. Emergency funds that actually work for you because they give you that breathing space, that calm. And they need to be calculated, easily accessible, and make sure that they are earning more than inflation. So number 2, in a way, this is about starting to think about diversifying your income stream. What happens if your main income stops? Now, resilient people will explore ways to ultimately leverage their money. They will invest. They might restructure how they earn. But what I'd like you to start off doing first off is thinking about how can you leverage your money so that it works harder for you so you don't have to. That's the point here. How can you leverage your money so that it works harder for you so that you don't have to? And this isn't about leaving it in an ordinary savings account with low interest, but it's about learning what investment could mean for you. It's about being smart about your savings and educated about investment. And then you start to make your money work harder. You get that breathing space so you don't have to work so hard. Then you could start to make better decisions. And what you might decide is that you really love any form of investing and you move off down another pathway. That's how it was for me. Although I would say it was almost forced on me in that I was made redundant first. I didn't have the 6 months money. And then I had to scrabble. And then I discovered investing in property. And I thought, do you know what? This is the path that I want to follow. I understand how I can leverage my time and leverage my money through property investment. It works for me. And that has enabled me to now be in a position where my money is working harder. We've literally just completed on another property today, and I don't have to. I don't have to work that hard. But it also starts with point number 3, knowing your numbers, because you can't make good decisions in a crisis. You've got to know what's coming in. You've got to know what's going out. You've got to know where your vulnerabilities are. So know that cost of living budget, that essential amount that you need to have. But also work out what your ideal life size budget would be. And for me, that is knowing how much is enough to cover the cost of living, your essentials, but also knowing how much is more than enough to live a wealthy life that you want to live. So if, for example, it's that £2,000 a month covers your essentials, and let's say another 1,000 a month covers your monthly fun. But what you'd really like to do is have a couple of good holidays a year. You'd like one big holiday, and then you'd like maybe a couple of weekends and a smaller holiday, and you budget that and say it's another 12 grand. I'm just doing this to make the maths nice. Then what you want to be working towards is 4 grand. And what you would be saying is that I've got 2 that covers my essentials, 1 that covers my short-term fun, and £1,000 that is put away for the longer-term fun, like my holidays and everything else. It's knowing your numbers, what they work for you. And that's what I said. It's not, oh, these elements are not about me just going, do this, do that, do this, do that. You've got to, no, that was a bit bossy. It would be ideal if you would take these elements, these foundations, and say, what does that mean for me? What are those numbers? Vicky mentioned 2,000. How much is it that I need on a monthly basis to cover my basic expenses? And then keep having those regular check-ins with your money. Know your financial position. Almost like if I was to say to you now, how much money do you have in the bank? You need to know. How much money do you need on a monthly basis just to cover your basic expenses? You need to know. How much money have you got in your savings account? Those numbers need to be on the top of your tongue, tip of your tongue, and at your fingertips. All right. So number 4 is having clear boundaries around money. And then this is where we can be uncomfortable, particularly as parents. You know, in comes child number 1, I need more money for this. In comes child number 2, I need more money for this. In comes a partner or a family member or maybe a friend. Do you find yourself saying yes to everyone else's financial needs before your own? How many women do that, particularly if you're listening? How many times do you say yes to somebody else's needs before your own? Resilience means knowing when to say no. And very much like your financial story, this is an unconscious habit. You can make yourself a priority. And if your financial story isn't strong, your money story isn't strong, you may not be one of your priorities. And this isn't about being selfish. It's actually about being responsible, and it's essential to your mental health. Clear boundaries around money, what's appropriate. And some of that will come out of working through your numbers. Once you know what your numbers are, that empowers you to be able to say yes or no. Because is it in the plan? If it's not in the plan, then the answer is no. You'll have to wait till we can put it in the plan. And I think that if I can wander off, teaching your children that money isn't something that's just on tap. Ironically, my children thought that we were rich because we had a holiday every year, even though I was still a student and working part-time. But at the same time, they knew that they couldn't have a comic every time we went in the shop. They couldn't have a sweet every time we went in the shop. It wasn't about constant, can I have this, can I have that? You look at young children in the shop with their parents and how many times an exhausted parent just, gives in and buys them a toy or buys them a comic. And comics aren't cheap, buys them something in order to keep them quiet and not have to deal with the consequences of saying no. You can have that in place where your children think that you're living a wealthy life, but don't literally get handouts on a constant basis. I'm not intruding on your parenting, but it is about the boundaries. And if you are stressed, then it's the boundaries that are an issue for you. And overall, what I want to do with you, point five, is actually create a long-term plan, a plan that starts now and will help tomorrow and will help next week and next month and next year and for the next 5 years and for the long term. That it's a long-term plan, but it doesn't have to be just some giant 40-page spreadsheet. Even mine isn't that big. Knowing your goals, knowing your strategy, and knowing how what you do today is going to build on your future, that's what's important to you. Knowing the worth of your time, knowing what a wealthy life would look for you, that's the start. It's that thinking process that can be done any time of the day. It could be done while you were cooking. It could be done while you're gardening. It could be done while you're exercising. And what I want to do is just give you two more ideas under this heading of planning. And one of those is get yourself a mentor or a financial guide, or tap into, if you're one of the women listening to the Smart Woman's Ultimate Guide for Money and Investing, there's a community there where you can learn and share. And if you're not a woman listening to this, you can join the Wealthy Life community. You know that you've got free access to all the resources that are there. The links will be in the show notes. I'm here to help and to support you, and maybe even to challenge you a little if you give me permission. And number two is build a system so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every month, so that you have maybe that single bank account out of which all the direct debits go. And it's such a powerful tool. I fully explain it in the guide to money investing and in the 80-page workbook, but it's something that I've spoken about so many times. A single bank account, if you're a couple, a joint bank account that all of the essential costs come out of, you pay into it, and it's just taken care of. It's all automatic. And then the money that is left in your individual wage receiving bank accounts is the money that you have left after all the essential costs have gone out. And I want to bring us back round now, just to sort of complete this loop, to the mindset of resilience, and bring them both, last week's podcast and this week's podcast, together. Because it is the mindset. It isn't just about the bank account. If you set up that bank account, but you don't have the mindset, it's not going to work for you. Because the mindset that comes with this enables you to stay calm when others panic. It will help you make those clear decisions, not from a position of stress. And it'll enable you that when a challenge comes along to just pause, to pivot, to protect yourself. And that's what we want. No stress. And I often ask clients, when was the last time you looked at your finances without feeling apprehensive or fear? The number of people I speak to, yeah, well, I don't really like checking. Goodness me, don't be in that position, right? You're doing that from a position of fear. I don't really like checking. Well, no, check. No, not N-O, K-N-O-W. Know that this is important to you and that this is what's going to empower you. If you can get the foundations that I've just mentioned right, then that moment of clarity, of calm, when you look at your bills or your bank statements or your credit cards, that's where resilience starts. That's where you're at. You're feeling strong. You've got the mindset. And then I'd like to leave you with some action. So I've talked about it. I've asked you right at the beginning to take what I'm saying and look at how it applies to you. I want to be a little bit more directive and give you some actions that you can take, because it can feel overwhelming. Oh, goodness, Vicky says I've got to rewrite my money story, sort out my mindset, and then become financially resilient. I don't know where to start. You don't need to do everything today, but you do need to take one step today. And that's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you, step one, to go and find out your monthly expenses. And that's the bit where everybody resists, but that's the bit that opens the door to financial resilience and the path to a wealthy life. And the simplest way of doing this is getting last month's bank statements, last month's credit cards. You can download all these things. You've probably got apps on your phone, and sit there and just add them up. If you want to be really adventurous, then you can download the wealth tracker from the community or from the course, and you can fill out a spreadsheet. But what I'm actually asking you to do is to simply add up how much you spent last month. And then if that feels like a lot, go and download the month before and add that up. And if those two numbers are similar, then that tells you that that's roughly what you're spending on a monthly basis. That's a combination of your essential costs and your variable costs. But what you might find is that last month was a more expensive month. And then when you think about it, you go, oh, yeah, well, because there were 3 birthdays in a month, or it was Christmas, or it was Easter, or it was the summer holidays. And so just go back over a few months until you find a number where you've got a sort of a regularity or a predictability to the number. You know, it might be that you spend 3 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand. Well, you paid for a holiday, or it's 3 grand, 3 grand, 2 grand, 2 grand, 2 grand, 2 grand, 2 grand. And it could be that you just need to find where that number is for you. That's it. That's all I want you to do this moment in time. If you're up for the challenge, I'd also like you to do step 2. And I'd like you to break down that spending into what was essential and what was by choice, the variable costs. What are your rent, your mortgage, your utility bills, council tax? And you might need to pull up 3 months of bills in order to work this out, because you might pay for things quarterly. But if you can then go that step from, I know how much I spend a month and I know how much of that is essential, that's going to put you in a position where you can start with step 3 and start towards building that emergency fund. You might already have some cash in savings, but you've not thought of it. You've not contextualized it into, this is specifically 6 months' money that covers my expenses. And it sits in an account on its own. It has to be in an account on its own. And then you can have another savings account. That's not a problem. If you don't have money already in savings accounts, then you need to set up a direct debit from your wages or your income account into a separate higher rate interest, mediumly easy access account. And remember, it has to pay more than the cost of inflation. That's absolutely crucial. But set up that account for yourself, because that's where the confidence and the power lies. First, in knowing your numbers, and second, in taking the action. And then step 4, book yourself a 30-minute money check-in every month. I would go one step further than that, and I would say book yourself 2.5 hours a month, where you listen to the podcast every month, and when you spend half an hour reflecting on what you've learned, checking your money, and building on that. And as it starts to become important to you, then you're going to be in a position where you're going to want to learn more. And instead of restricting yourself to what is essentially just over half an hour a week, you're going to want to spend more time. When I prepared all of the work for everybody as part of the Wealthy Life community, I suggested that you planned in set hours 3 times a week, just a little bit of time, 3 hours a week, so that you could do the activities that I set you in the Wealthy Life community, that you could be constantly thinking about your money and about your personal development, but in a very specific financial reducing step way. Because this is how you shift from reacting to planning, from following and drifting to leading and determining. And if you want that clear strategy, then you can go along and download the free course that's on YouTube, the Smart Woman's Ultimate Guide to Money and Investing. It's got 4 hours of content completely free, and of course the workbook. And if you're a man listening, well, then go along and join the wealthy community, where there are so many manuals and workbooks and interviews that you can go in there. And if you're a woman with loads of capacity, do it all. Watch the video and then go and join the community as well. What I'd like to do now, as I always do in every podcast, is leave you with 3 insights that will add a bit more whoosh to your life. And so what I want to start off by saying is that resilience isn't about having more. It's about being ready with what you have. You don't need a fortune to feel secure. You need clarity, you need that financial cushion, and you need a plan. And that's what gives you the calm in any forthcoming chaos. Real financial resilience isn't about cutting back or playing small. It's about creating the systems that give you choice, even in uncertain times. And number 2, you're not preparing for a disaster. You're designing your freedom, your wealthy life. Because if you come from a place of fear and you're hoarding and hesitating and feeling guilty, that's the wrong mindset. It's strategy that builds those positive options for you. When you create a plan with purpose, you stop reacting and you start thinking and planning. You become your leader rather than a passive follower of either social media or old money stories that don't serve you. You don't need to play small to feel safe. You need a strategy. And what I would also say, sort of almost on this theme, that strength and financial resilience doesn't look loud and brash. It's often just calm. True financial confidence isn't all of those flashy pictures that we see so often on social media, people standing by a fancy new car that they bought, which basically lost value the minute they took it off the forecourt. It's about having the quiet knowing that no matter what happens, you have a plan, there is a structure, and you've got the tools to respond. That's real resilience. Not a big house, not flashy cars. It's not numbers on social media. It's about your personal numbers that mean so much to you. So just ask yourself the question, how much do I need? That's step 1. I know I have 6 months of essential bills covered. That's basically step 2 and step 3. And then know that you are strong and capable and in control of your money, not the other way around. And turn those into almost affirmations. I know how much money I need on a monthly basis. I know I have 6 months resilience fund and I am covered for any uncertainty. I know I am strong, I am capable, I'm in control of my money. And that's when you can stop reacting. That's when you can start leading your own money decisions and change the way you show up, literally in every part of your life. It's not about being a prepper. It's about being powerful. It's about your financial power that comes from knowing what you need to know, the key numbers in your life. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know the essentials and then do something. Take action with intention. And that's all I ever want to do. That's all I'm here for, is to help you make those changes in your life. And I thank you for listening. And I would ask, if this has helped you, I would really love it if you shared this with someone you know who needs to hear this message, who needs to build financial resilience, who needs to feel calm around money. And then we can all have financial resilience without shrinking the life that you were put on this planet to live. I want to leave you with a statement that says, resilience is quiet strength. Doesn't look like panic. It looks like peace. Until next time, my name's Vicky Wachet, and this is A Wealthy Life. Thank you for listening.